Okay, let's watch Love is Blind, Season 1, Episode 5. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I've been a couples therapist for 23 years-ish, and I've taught in a couple therapy program for 22 years or something. And I am married, so I know fully well what being married and being in a relationship is like, and what it's like to fall in love, and what it's like to date. What I don't know what it's like is to have cameras pointed to you all the time and being put on Netflix for everyone around the world to see. I have no idea what that's like. Let's see what it's like for these folks. Episode 5.
Like, just to meet each other and jump into bed, it would ruin everything for me at this point. Like, I can't do it.
And I get it, what you're saying about physicality. But I'm not some random hookup. I'm not some random guy that's gonna just come into your life and then go. The physical, for me, that's a big thing. My biggest concern is, like, I don't want you to get so stern with me when you're telling me how you feel about it, that it's almost as though it's a command. As in, like, this is how it's gonna be and this is this.
Come off like a command? What the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about? No, I wasn't trying to be like an asshole about it.
So I want to rewatch this because I'm not really understanding what they're saying here. It sounds like Jessica is saying she doesn't want to have sex with him. Mark gets upset about that and says, I hear where you're coming from, but I don't feel good about this coming off like it's a command. If that's what I'm hearing right, like, that is some interesting stuff here. So let's back up.
The physical, and I get it.
Like, just to meet each other and jump into bed, it would ruin everything for me at this point. Like, I can't do it.
And I get it, what you're saying about physicality. But I'm not some random hookup. I'm not some random guy that's gonna just come into your life and then go. The physical, for me, that's a big thing. My biggest concern is, like, I don't want you to get so stern with me when you're telling me how you feel about it, that it's almost as though it's a command. As in, like, this is how it's gonna be and this is this.
Wow.
Come off like a command? What the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about? No, I wasn't trying to be like an asshole about it.
Yeah. You never know with reality TV. It could have been spliced together to make this all look a certain way. I'm always skeptical of that. But it does look like, at least from this angle, that she's saying she doesn't want to have sex with him. Now, you people out there, you're dating someone, and they're like basically saying, I don't want to have sex with you. There's a lot of different interpretations of that. One is, this person isn't really into me, at least physically, and that's incompatible with what I'm looking for in a partner. Maybe this isn't going to work out. That's a bummer. Now what? That's one angle. Another angle is, whew, I didn't want to have sex either. I want to take my time. Another angle is, well, I don't really know what it means. Let's just see what happens. Let's see if, let's give it some time, and, maybe this will go a certain way. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll like a relationship that goes slow. I don't know. There's a lot of different reactions to this. His reaction is particular. His reaction is, I'm not a random. So he's giving he's saying things like, I don't like what you're saying, Jessica. I want to have sex. And it's not from a place of intimacy. It's from a place of desperation. I have a feeling that where he's coming from is he's insecure about the way it looks to the other guys, and maybe in front of all these cameras, that she won't have sex with him. It indicates that she's not really into him, and that's a narcissistic injury, or it's an ego injury. One, two, he might actually really love her and be worried about rejection, and he interprets lack of sex as an indication that she doesn't really love him and that she's going to leave him. Which is possible, but, not necessarily true. So instead of saying, oh, okay, you don't want to have sex, I wouldn't mind having sex with you, but I respect you, and, let's just see what happens. Let's see if that emerges. Let me know if things change for you. people who want that kind of space usually react well to that. People don't usually react to pursuing in a situation like that. Not always, but because dating is weird and people are weird. But his reaction is one of, he's the one being stern. She's the one just saying, I don't want to have sex. He says, I don't think it's good that you're stern with me. And I don't like that you're saying it like it's a command, which is an interesting way of putting it. Like, he is perceiving her saying she doesn't want to have sex with him as a command. Like, that's such a weird flip, right? It's like she's commanding me not to have sex with her. It comes from a place of entitlement, which is either one, a defense because he wants to be close to her, and this is his way, and this is his habitual way out of this, is to basically just kind of steamroll people. It's also potentially sexist because a lot of men are programmed, not all men, but a lot of men, many women too, many people of all genders, but men more on average are programmed to believe that sex is their right, that they have a right to have sex, and that women have an obligation to have sex with them. So at the very least, he looks like he's being sexist in that she's saying she doesn't want to have sex, and he's like, hey, I don't like this attitude from you. You can't command me not to have sex with you. And then she reacts, even though she looks quite intoxicated. Her brain is working well enough that she's like, a command? You know, she's just like, whoa. And then he's like, oh no. He realizes he makes I didn't mean to be an asshole. So I just want to watch this again because this is pretty interesting exchange here.
It would ruin everything for me at this point. Like, I can't do it.
And I get it, what you're saying about physicality. But I'm not some random hookup. I'm not some random guy that's gonna just come into your life and then go. The physical, you know, for me, that's a big thing. My biggest concern is, like, I don't want you to get so stern with me when you're telling me how you feel about it, that it's almost as though it's a command. As in, like, this is how it's gonna be and this is this.
Come off like a command? What the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about? No, I wasn't trying to be like an asshole about it. Not what you took it the wrong way. That's not what I'm saying.
No, that's what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. Listen, I'm on the same page as you. We want something to be special. We want something to be a moment, and we want something to be a checkpoint that we can look back on and say, this is a foundation that we appreciate.
I feel the same way.
Okay.
That's good.
You're on the same page. No. So we're on the same page.
So again, as I was talking about, I think in episode 4 of Love is Blind, he exhibits this lack of differentiation where when he's worried about rejection and distance, he has a lot of messaging around we're the same. We're the same person he talked about in this earlier episode. And in this instance, he's losing her, and he's definitely getting a lot of communication and messaging and body language that she is not happy with him. It almost looks like she's done with him, and I wouldn't blame her for what he just said, especially compounded with the fact that maybe she's not sexually attracted to him, and maybe that's a value of hers. But what he's reacting to, instead of apologizing and saying, you're right, I shouldn't have said that, I was being forceful, of course you're free to demand not to have sex, that's your right, that I'm sorry, I was worried I was going to lose you and I was getting desperate and I said some shit I didn't mean. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. You know, we're on the same page. It's an effort to force the other person to, it's a message of just like, we're close, we're bonded, we're together, and you're like me. It's a immature statement of like, it's a desperate statement of like, you know, we're the same person, you know, we're on the same page. He's trying to reassure himself in some kind of desperate way. And again, as I was talking about in other instances on this show, when we're worried and we're scared and we're hurt, unless we really kind of slow down and recognize that and communicate it and give the other person a chance to rise to the occasion and help us out, if we don't do that, we end up doing all these defenses like this, which is like pursuing and we're on the same page, which isn't going over well, right? It feels like more of a dominant act by him. I don't know how she's receiving it, but that's kind of how it looks.
No, that's what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. Listen, I'm on the same page as you. We want something to be special. We want something to be a moment, and we want something to be a checkpoint that we can look back on and say, this is a foundation that we appreciate.
I feel the same way.
Okay.
That's good.
You know, on the same page. No. So we're on the same page.
Sure. I feel like everything in this whole scenario is opposite of what the world is. The world is this place where you can easily swipe right on somebody and hook up with them that night.
Okay.
Go hook up with somebody. You could do it right now. Period. That's it.
I may have used a torture.
We can all go hook up with somebody right now.
I've already told you that you and I are on the same page. I'm sorry. It was a bad use of words. All I'm saying is that we don't have to keep talking about it.
I know.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
We have just saw each other, 2 days ago? And so she wants to make sure it's a real thing. And I get that. And for me, it's 1,000% real because I don't want to be with anybody else. It's me and you. That's all I want. I don't want anything else. I don't want anyone else. I want you. It's me and you in 4 weeks for the rest of our lives. Okay?
So I will say that there's some promise here. There's potentially less problematic reactivity between the two of them. This could have gone a lot worse than it did. As a couples therapist, I tend to look at the half-full perspective a lot of times because that helps people to be inspired to move in that direction. But they have some major issues to work on here, both individually and as a couple. This issue of like, who has the power to say what and how do we really communicate about that? So we'll see if they work that out as the show goes on.
I had a definite feeling that I was not maybe there in terms of physical aspect of our relationship. Today, I'm really surprised. It's taking a bit of a turn for me. Him showing his true colors and me seeing just how wonderful he is, how dynamic of a man he is. It's really attractive.
It's really potent cheese.
Which one?
That one. Oh.
Hopefully you're feeling better.
I am. What about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling better now.
You weren't too happy with earlier, and I can't ignore that.
I was upset. We're a lot alike. We see a lot of things on the same page. We can read each other in a lot of the same areas, but it's hard for me to want to get into like deep conversations in the middle of something. And for you, that's easier, but me, I'm not used to that. I feel like you're putting me down because you're telling me, I'll give you time, I'll give you space, I'm not gonna dig, and then you dig, push, and then stomp off.
I'm not this person that wants to take you out of your happy bubble.
When we look at the way these two are having a somewhat tense conversation, we can, and it's hard to know because they edit this for TV, but at the very least, we just saw him. He said, you know, it's harder for me to do something that, and it seems like you don't want me to do that. He's basically accusing her of something. Now, she could have taken that really hard and been like, you're accusing me of what? You know, we've seen earlier conflicts in this TV series where things escalate. She responds in a way that is not escalating of the situation. She, they're still, on the DEFCON scale, they're still kind of low. So let's see how this goes. Hopefully that this won't escalate. I just don't like to see people hurt each other's feelings.
And I'm not trying to get something out of you. I'm just trying to understand you. You're closing something, and I feel it.
Okay, so she's expressing something fairly functional. She's like, I want to be close to you, and I feel you putting up a wall. You know, and you see her, she's kind of smiling, she's open, she's not, you know, yelling at someone. She's there to hear, and she looks like she's open to a helpful, you know, a helpful functional dialogue. So let's see how, now his body language, he still has his arm around her, it looks like, but he's sort of turning away and he has kind of a stern face and he's looking away. So we'll see how this goes.
And I can't ignore it, and that's why I push. But then you come at me and you're like, you're dramatic. And that's not fair, because you knew what you were getting yourself into when you were talking to me in the pod.
I didn't process all that when we were talking on the boat. I didn't process that there's a reason that, she is asking these questions. Not just because she's digging or she's trying to upset me, it's because she cares. When I backed into a wall.
So, again, very functional. It's nice to see. It's like, oh, please don't fight. And so he's saying, oh, okay, I hear you now. You're digging, and at the time I kind of thought you were just digging to, like, I don't know, get under my skin. Oh, I get it. You care, because she's communicating that. I'm digging because I care. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's giving her the benefit of the doubt. He could have said, well, that's a stupid way to do it. I don't appreciate when you dig. A lot of what greases the wheels of a relationship is giving each other the benefit of the doubt. That's when things go well. So it's nice to see.
Sometimes I put up this block trying to not let anybody see the emotional side of Damien, but I just need to be willing to open up more and let her help with it. So my escape from reality. When I planned on getting married and engaged, I planned it all differently. And I don't think any of us ever expected to go this route. But I also expected to be able to provide. I have a good career, I have a good job, and I sacrificed that coming here. It scares me not to be able to give you what you deserve and to not.
So again, more functional communication. She's touching him, she's rubbing his shoulder. When I see people do that in couples therapy, I always think, oh, this couple's going to be an easy couple to treat. Because if you can, there's a lot of indicators there. One is that you feel open enough that you can actually extend yourself, because, you might get rejected. So, you feel you have enough trust in other people and in your partner to be able to reach out and risk that rejection. And he's starting to cry. I'm not really understanding this conversation. Honestly, I think they chopped it up too much. I'm not really tracking how we got to his work. But, he's emoting and he's being vulnerable, and it's always a good sign in a relationship, that ability to do that.
Like, to get a place and to possibly lose my job, all that scares me. I've always planned to be a solid rock for my family. I want to make sure my wife and future kids and everything are taken care of. But I've taken more time off than I'm really allowed to be here. So there is a scare of going back and not having a job, because I want Giannina to be proud. I want her family to be proud of the man that she's decided to marry. There's a lot of fears there because I don't want to lose her. It's not easy for me to open up. And I try and I try and I fight myself, and I throw excuses in there because I'm not used to somebody caring. And I know you care.
I can provide for myself. I have no issue working hard to get what I need, what I want. But the fact that he wants to put me in that equation, I'm taken aback in a good way. You wanna know what I think? It's your own expectations. But it's okay if those change. Like, no one thought that we would be in this situation, right? So it's okay if things don't work out as.
So if they were in couple therapy and I saw this, he's breaking down, he's crying, he's talking about how he's worried he's going to lose his job, he's not going to be able to provide for her and his family, and he pauses for her to respond. She comes in with this kind of like, you know what I think, and this kind of analytical, in the head sort of response. What I would have appreciated, okay, Giannina, that's great. We'll get to that in a second. Can you just respond to his emotional expression here, what he's telling you emotionally? Can you, kind of just slow down, sit with those emotions? What do you think he's saying? She probably would say, because she seems like she's pretty good at recognizing emotions, she'd be like, oh, well, he seems really sad, and he said he was scared, well, what do you think about that? How do you feel about that? What do you feel when you hear that? You're like, well, I feel bad for him that he feels sad and scared. I don't want him to feel that way. Okay. Slowing down, not being intellectual all the time, really connecting on those emotions really helps to bond people, and also gives people a chance to trust others, that when we emote, we're seen and understood and accepted for that expression before people go to solutions and intellectualization. Usually men are accused of responding to emotions in an intellectual manner. Believe me, women are at least almost as guilty as men in committing that. And she is doing that. She's giving a lot of empathy with her body language and her facial expression, so that's a big deal. But she's coming in with this analytical response, which isn't what I would recommend that she do.
Planned, the expectations that you set for yourself, you've met them. At least with me, like, you're the most caring. Like I said, like, the things that you do on a daily basis, I'm like, how? Like, this isn't real. Like, this man is literally a gentleman. Like, you do everything.
I adore him. We are bonded for life, but it's hard to not compare my feelings for Mark and where we're at with everyone else. I think I have been like struggling a little bit with the physical aspect.
Yeah.
It's totally different than what I normally go for. Right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie about how I feel. I wanna like
No,
really
you
like,
shouldn't.
it's just, there's a physical discomfort still. If I literally didn't know these guys, maybe I would say Barnett, because he's just more my typical type. Right.
So nothing wrong with having an attraction for another person besides your fiance. Totally normal. It's also not totally uncommon for couples to have some dips in their libido for each other. So nothing wrong with that. I will say that it doesn't bode well for this sort of situation in which they're frankly they barely know each other, and Jessica is already saying she's not attracted to her fiance physically, and she's much more attracted to someone else. So, yeesh. I feel bad for Mark. What I hope as someone watching, and not as a couples therapist, but just as a citizen, I hope Jessica just leaves the show now and says, you know what, gave it my best shot. I'm not attracted to Mark. He seems like a good guy, but it's not really working out, so I guess I'll go home. I hope that she does that. Or a spark happens for her where she's attracted to Mark. Somehow I don't see that happening, but, we'll see.
New relationship, absolutely. But the whole age thing that I was so concerned about has not been an issue at all. No. It's been.
The other thing I'll say is that some people, they were emailing me to watch this show, and some of the people trying to prompt me to watch it, they'd be like, "Oh my God, it's so stupid! These people are so dumb." Not everyone's saying that, but some people are. I think a lot of people watch these kinds of shows, hate watch it, right? They watch it to kind of make fun of it and that sort of thing. And as a couples therapist, as a therapist in general, I have over time learned how to see the human behind the culture. Jessica, for example, she comes from a particular slice of American culture. It's really quite apparent. If you met her, you would instantly know, you come from this sort of class strata. You adopt this version of femininity. You have these sorts of entitlements and these sorts of privileges. It's all there, and it's not me. Like, if I met Jessica, I don't know if we would be friends. It's hard to know. But, and if I slipped into kind of a citizen mode, I might, make fun of her, like, oh, the way she talks and she's so superficial, or whatever it is that people say about people like this on the show. But as a therapist, I actually am tasked, my calling in life is to actually heal people of all types, which means that I can't prejudge people, which means that over time I've shed all of those filters and I can see the human behind the presentation, if you will. I can see the human behind the defenses. I can see the goodness and the commonality, really, the soul commonality with people who might look quite different from me. Maybe people out there are waiting for me to say, ooh, look at that, ooh, look at that. It's not really in my nature to do that. I can slip into a citizen mode at times. Certainly, I'm not like superhuman in that way. But when I'm in the mode like I am right now of, trying to analyze and be a podcaster, it just doesn't really occur to me. I really see all these people as human beings and with the hopes and fears and dreams and joys that I have. So, I feel that. Anyway, let's continue watching.
These past few days have honestly been amazing.
I was finally being me, and I finally got her. It's like everything, all the stars aligned.
But before we went to bed,
Jessica was telling me about how she's feeling, how she doesn't know if she can get there with me physically.
I think this all came to a head after meeting the other couples.
The physical attraction between Kenny and Kelly is undeniable. And I think Barnett and Amber are playing out in this, very sexual, showy way.
They seem to all be in a different headspace as it pertains to their physical relationships. And I'm really far behind with Mark. When he kisses me, it doesn't feel right or comfortable.
If I can just hear his voice and grab his hand, then we're good. But it's all the other things that just don't feel right. I think we go home and see what happens. But
So again, it's hard to know because they're on a reality show and maybe they're just sticking with it because they want to be on a show. I don't know. But if we're to take this at face value, this is, in an earlier episode, I was talking about how Mark has indications of a lack of differentiation. And listen to those early episodes for the explanation of differentiation, which is put forth by Bowen, who is a family therapist. Jessica also exhibits this in that if we're to take this at face value, which it's hard to do sometimes, but if we are, she, at first, when they're behind closed doors, her and Mark, she's like, I don't like kissing him. I don't want to have sex with him. I'm not sexually attracted to him. He's not my type. But we have fun together and we're good friends and, we seem to be getting along quite a lot. And, frankly, he really loves me a lot. He's obsessed with me. So that feels good. And she's kind of trucking along. And then she goes out with these other couples and she looks at them and she's like, wow, they have a lot of sexual attraction and, it's mutual, it's reciprocal back and forth. They both are kind of all over each other. And then she looks at herself and she's like, wow, something's wrong with us. So she's 34. So this isn't her first dating experience, right? So this indicates, again, hard to know. I can't diagnose from afar, but it's at least an indication of a lack of differentiation because when she compares herself to other people, that's when she actually reflects on herself. And she has a hard time kind of gauging things for herself. My guess is if she were more differentiated and had fewer defenses, she would recognize for herself, she would be able to look inward and say, do I want to be with this person? Instead of, well, he really wants to be with me, so I'll be with him. And then, wow, these other women are really into their guys. I'm not into my guy. What does that mean for me? It's just an inability to really have a center of self that you can depend on as a guide for very important decisions like who I have sex with and who I get married to. Hard to say, but that's what I'm seeing.
But I don't feel right wearing the ring this morning based on how I feel. It's not to say it can't work, but I'm not, really expecting that to happen at this point.
And I just feel terrible for Mark to have this play out on international TV. That's rough. I wish him the best.
I love Jessica. I love being around her. I love everything, her laugh, her smile. And I just feel like, though, Jessica's trying to find something wrong in something that there's nothing wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with that connection we made. Like, there's literally nothing. And I keep battling and I keep fighting, and even now when it's like this came out of nowhere. We had a perfect night, and I think that's what kind of hurts is that I'm just like, I feel like I've fought and keep fighting and keep fighting and keep fighting, and I keep.
Again, I feel bad for him, and he's coming from a schema where he thinks he has to fight for people to love him. It's hard to say, I can't diagnose him, but there's signs where he doesn't really understand that love flows naturally, that when you love someone and you're compatible and you both love each other, you don't have to fight in that way. You don't have to like scrape and scrap. And now relationships take work, believe me, but you shouldn't have to fight in the way that he's fighting. You know, he's trying to, I think when he says fight, he definitely believes, or he shows signs that he believes that he has to convince her that the relationship is good. Up until this point, there's been a lot of him trying to convince her, we're on the same page, you know, we're good for each other, we're compatible, we're perfect. You know, this is, you know, it's a lot of it. I think that's him fighting, is he's trying to be a cheerleader for the relationship, which is, I understand that impulse, but it ultimately doesn't work, right? Because when people feel like they're trying to be sold something, people usually back away. You know that feeling you get when you walk into a shoe store or a retail store and you just feel the retail salesperson looking at you. You know they're coming, and can I help you with anything? You're like, no, get away. Not everyone is like that, but I hope you get my gestures. Or a telemarketer calling you on the phone of just like, hey, how's it going? You just instantly, oh God, they're going to try to sell me something. Or you're trying to walk out of the grocery store and there's someone with a clipboard and you're just like, oh God, get away from me. That's not conducive to romance, right? And Mark's idea of what it takes to win someone over ultimately pushes them away. Now, I'm guessing that Mark developed that fight mentality in response to rejection in his past. Or he saw it play out maybe in his parents, or, because sometimes we're modeled that in our lives. And he's trying to really account for potential rejection. Again, as I've been saying throughout this whole series, is when we have defenses that try to defend against rejection, defend against loneliness, sometimes those defenses will create the loneliness. His defense against distance and rejection is to fight, and that fighting actually turns her off and pushes her away. At least that's the way it looks. And again, I just, my heart breaks for him.
I keep going back to the reveal. It's like that's my person. And I always fight for what I believe in, and I always fight for the people that I want in my life. And it's like I never give up, but I also don't want to pressure anybody. I'm here, strength. I can be that rock that we keep talking about, but I need the same.
But we did have a connection, and it was a strong connection.
Yeah. I got really emotionally invested in that, and then I feel like you did too.
I'm happy, so.
Yeah. If Barnett and I continued our relationship outside of the pod, you would see a totally different Barnett, an introspective Barnett, a sophisticated, holding himself high Barnett. It would be complete opposite of what you see with him and Amber. It's interesting to see that he chose something completely opposite of kind of what we had going.
So how was March?
We're struggling for sure.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The physical for me has been really hard. It's just
we connected so much in the pods, and then it's I guess seeing each other, it doesn't feel 100%. You know what I mean? So I'm still trying to figure that out, but see what happens.
I keep fighting, but then damn, it's I'm gonna keep fighting, but I need something back.
At some point, she has to believe it and see it too. You shouldn't have to fight forever.
Talking with.
So, great statement from Amber. He's saying, I keep fighting. And then Amber says, at some point, she's either into you or she's not. So it sounds like she's got a good head on her shoulders with regards to that.
Amber made me feel better a little bit, but I still feel as though I need to go talk to Jess. It's almost like, let's go back to square one, where we started, and communicate and just get into what we're feeling and how we got here in the first place, which is opening up and being vulnerable and being who we are internally and just saying, hey, this is what's going on with you, and just figuring it out from there.
You want the other person to be all in too, and you want that reassurance. I feel it. Gotta embrace the mess and see if you can manage it together.
Open with me. That's all I've ever wanted.
Seeing you, meeting you, accepting your proposal, it was all 100.
And that's what I felt, and that's why I'm still here right now. But I feel as though once we got done with the experiment, you like put that roadblock in there.
Just because it's an experiment that someone set up.
So again, there's a lot of indication given to Mark that she's just not into him. And that's sad, but that's not how he is choosing to narrativize the situation. You hear him right there. It's like, we had this thing, and then you put up a barrier, meaning that she put up a barrier to her love for him. And this is often a narrative that a lot of people who are being rejected and dumped will adopt, because it's unbearable to think that the other person just simply isn't into you anymore. For all of you listening out there, all of you watching, think about times when you were dating someone and then one day you just kind of woke up and you're like, you know what, I just don't think I'm into that person. It's nothing personal. It's just, it just wasn't there. The spark wasn't there. And you're just like, I got to break up with this person because they're really into me. I'm not really into them. Who knows what it is? Chemistry, pheromones, who knows? And you're just not into them. You don't put up a barrier. There's not some secret part of yourself that's super in love with that person. It just is what it is. It's the magical human unexplained mystery of love and attraction. And instead of seeing it that way, like, she's just not attracted to me, she just doesn't like me the way I like her, that sucks. That's a really hard thing to accept. You have to be pretty mature, pretty differentiated, pretty secure in yourself to be able to accept that possibility. And she's basically been telling him that for a while. But he's adopted a new narrative that protects him from realizing that, in that he just said, you put up this barrier, and so it's also kind of a dominant thing to say, in terms of, he has this style of talking where he accuses people of things to get them to love him. Of course, that doesn't usually work ultimately.
I'm not there yet. I don't think I should wear the ring. I'm just uncomfortable. It doesn't feel authentic for me to wear this symbol of forever. Right now, I just feel like we are miles apart from each other.
You can't fake all that. When I saw you, all those emotions and everything was real. Getting down.
So again, he's going into that fight mode. Okay, I've got to convince her. I've got to fight. Instead of just say, okay, you're not into me. He's fighting. He's scrapping. He's trying to make it work. He's also, I'm guessing, struggling with something that a lot of people struggle when they're being broken up with, which is, wait, so in the beginning, you're saying, and I remember, we had a real connection when we were in those pods. And now you're saying you don't feel that anymore. Was it all fake? That's one of the temptations that happens for people. Now, again, for yourself, think back to a time when you fell in love with someone and it was genuine and true, and then later on, you didn't love that person anymore. There's a lot of roads to not loving someone anymore in that way. That doesn't mean that the beginning love was fake. It just means that it didn't stay, or it evolved, or whatever. There's this temptation for people being broken up with, like Mark, to be like, so I have two choices here. Either your love is real and you're putting up a barrier to the love that's still there, or the whole thing was fake, you never really loved me. The second option is a lot harder to accept, right? Because it's like, whoa, you know, I was deceived, I was tricked, I can never trust love again. So a lot of people will go to this thing of just like, you know, wait, what we had was real. What we had was real, right? What they don't consider is a third possibility of, yes, what we had was real and it went away for the other person, but not for me. From the outside, it's obvious and it makes sense. From the inside, it's really hard to accept.
One knee was real, but the experiment, it doesn't end there. The experiment doesn't end at the pods. Like, I get it, it was safe. Like, there was no judgment, there was no insecurities, but like, there's still none of that. There's just not a wall between us anymore.
Feels like we haven't necessarily given it an honest chance. I need her to kind of remember where we were. Reassure her that I'm the same man you fell in love with in the pods is the same man that's in front of you in person.
I'm not trying to force you into a decision. I'm just taking you back to where we were and letting you see that.
So it's interesting he uses this language of, I'm not trying to force you, but then he proceeds to give messages like he's trying to force her. Now, he's not physically trying to force her, but he's giving a lot of messages like, you're wrong, and you're putting up barriers, and you're giving me these commands. You know, he has those signs. Obviously, I can't diagnose. It's a reality TV show. Who knows? But he has. If you're out there and you're dating and you see something like this, it's a yellow flag for someone who is insecure and copes with that insecurity through control and by fighting, which can evolve into abuse. I'm not accusing Mark of that, but clinically, take it from me, that's a yellow flag for that.
I need my back, like my teammate.
You've given me unconditional love since day one. I'm still here. I'm still open. I want to remain open to you because I really, really care about you so much. I love really hard, and I love you.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I felt.
And I do. I really do.
Appreciate you telling me. I'd love for you to be on my team. I'd love for you to be there for me and be.
So if she's breaking up with him, she's certainly not making it easy for him to understand. To say those things, I'm guessing what she means is, I love you as a friend. I don't love you as a romantic partner. In fact, I don't even want to kiss you. That's basically, she said that earlier. I don't want to kiss you, let alone have sex with you. I love you as a friend and I care about you a lot. But she's not saying that. She's saying, I love you. I understand why people like that do that. When you're dumping someone, you feel bad for them. You don't want to hurt their feelings. You want to make them feel good. You don't want them to hurt. You don't want them to hate you. So you avoid saying the things that you probably should say. And I feel like Jessica is avoiding that, which is normal but unfortunate.
Rock and roll.
Be a badass team.
Dude.
Either that, or she lacks differentiation, the ability to look inward and say, what do I want? She lacks a self in the psychoanalytic sense. And through this conversation, she's being convinced, she's swayed back to, oh yeah, maybe we should get married. It seems to be kind of heading in that direction because she lacks connection with her true self. The phrase lack of self often is confused and misinterpreted even by clinicians to mean that the person doesn't have a self. But everyone has a self. Everyone has emotions. Everyone has a core. We develop connection to that core when we're properly attuned to from the ages of 0 to 5. If we're not given enough attunement and safety and non-chaos and love and attention, if we're not given enough good parenting, we're not given an opportunity to connect with that part of ourself. And then we never really know what we want, and we're easily influenced by other people. And she seems to exhibit that. I can't diagnose from afar, but for the purposes of education, that's the principle. All right, well, that is the end of episode 5, season 1, Love is Blind. Tune in next time for episode 6. Will Mark and Jessica differentiate, or will they not? What will happen to all the rest of them? Let's see, let's find out. I've been told that I should tell you to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so you get notified. Also, know that I do Thursday, 2 p.m. Seattle YouTube Live every week, usually. Thursday, 2 o'clock Seattle time, YouTube Live for an hour. I answer your questions. You can tell me whatever is on your mind. So join me then. All right. Take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really do.